wow, a strangely gifted man. And he had some brilliant ideas about electricity. I always confuse AC and DC. One of them, Edison had supported, which is not what we have now. Tesla was the one who had sort of seen the future. But when Edison had got Tesla to work for him, he could see that the man was brilliant, and he simply took a lot of his ideas and used them for his own purposes. And the main point of the chapter was Edison ended up with this career that was pretty glorious, pretty wonderful, got everything that he wanted, was a very powerful inventor figure, and Tesla lived a life of misery. He was a very unhappy man who died in extreme poverty. I have a quote in there, not extreme, but he did not do well. He was being honored near the end of his life, and he gave a speech in which he said, well, you're honoring me now. Why weren't you there 5 years ago? I have no money, no support. Basically because he didn't understand the power game. He didn't understand that he had to be a courtier. He didn't understand that he had to control he had to be the one administering his own ideas and not be serving other people or be more clever about it. He was terrible at the power game, and it's sort of a sad parable of what happens to people who are talented but don't understand that life can be very political. And Edison, on the other hand, was very gifted. He was not stupid. He was actually very, very brilliant. But he was not his mathematics was mediocre. He wasn't an Einstein, let's put it that way, or a Tesla, but he knew how to work with people. He was a real good motivator, and he knew how to get the right teams of people together. And that's who ended up having success. So I'm trying to say, in a broader metaphor, if you want to be happy and have some control over your destiny, you might want to pay attention to the Edison model and not make the mistakes that Tesla made.
That's very wise. Do you have any concerns right now that are demonstrated in your writing about where the world is going, where the planet is going, where the global politics are going? Does anything worry you or concern you? I know we talked about industrialization or the electronics and people not being self-reliant, but is there anything else that's concerning you?
Well, there's a lot concerning me, but I have, I'm a big believer in been supporting environmental causes for years now, and gravely concerned about that, and global warming, which I don't believe is a myth, is extremely real. But my idea is to always try and get at the root of the problem, and not see the surface, or at least what I think is the surface. And so in applying that idea to what's afflicting us now, in my next book, I am trying to kind of get at that, and to show that maybe it's a way of thinking that has gone astray. That we developed these brains, the human brain, over the course of 3 million years, maybe 6 million, or you can go back to primates for 48 million years, for a purpose, which is this is an incredible instrument for solving problems and for connecting ourselves to our immediate environment, and using that as a way, as I said, to solve problems. And there was a process that we went through whenever we attacked a problem in the environment, or tried to invent something or create something. And I believe we're losing sense of that. Some of it is technological because of technology. Some of it is cultural, etc. And that's what I want to bring us back to, particularly in my next book. A sense of, if you follow this path, you do A, B, and C, you learn something very deeply, you go deeply into a field, you learn how to connect all the various different fields of human knowledge, you learn how to solve problems. And the point we're reaching is we create more problems than we know how to solve, and it reaches a tipping point, to quote Malcolm Gladwell, where we're overwhelmed. And so I want to get at that kind of what's underneath, what has gone astray in our thinking process, not necessarily morally or what our politicians are doing, because I think it's a problem that each one of us individually is facing, and that we can't really point a finger and say it's this person's fault or that person's fault. It's all of our faults in a way.
How long does it take you to write a book like this? This is almost 500 pages, the 48 Laws of Power, and all of your books are packed. How long did it take you, do you remember, to write the 48 Laws of Power?
48 Laws of Power was an anomaly. I said before it was kind of like an orange that was, I'm thinking of oranges because they're on my tree right now. It was so ripe that when you took it off the tree and cut it open, the juices just sort of flowed out. I was so ripe to do that book that it only took me 2 years, and that meant researching literally close to 300 books, taking notes, organizing, writing, editing. Because I essentially worked night and day without stop, I was so motivated. Then I started slowing down. The Art of Seduction took 3 years. The War book took about 3 years. So now that seems to be what it is for me as I get older and slower. It's a little more like 3 years of researching and writing and editing and all that.
I purchased The Art of Seduction, and I want to do a separate segment with you on that. It really deserves its own segment.
Okay. Sure.
One last question to you about courting attention.
Uh-huh.
This is a common public relations theme throughout the world, actually. Yeah. And I was wondering if you would share a little bit about that law.
Well, it's one of those laws that's specific to your circumstance. So it says court attention at all costs. But there are moments in life when you don't want to court attention, when you want to kind of disappear. So let's not take this too literally.
Right.
And say, oh, well, I must, wear a bright yellow shirt and go out in the street and get everybody's attention. It's not that stupid. It's more subtle than that. It's more like if you're starting your career, you're in the beginning phases. The game, at least for power, is to gain people's attention. We're all distracted. We're paying attention to 1,000 different things. And if in your work environment, for instance, you're kind of a non-entity, that's where you're going to remain. Even you can be as brilliant as Nikola Tesla, but if you're not getting the right attention, it doesn't matter. And so here are some various strategies, depending on your circumstances, for courting the right attention. How to stand out from the crowd, but you don't want to stand out too much because then you're going to look like a weirdo. You have to stand out just enough so that people admire you and pay attention. So it's basically, about strategies for doing that, and some of it is kind of the icon of that law, if you could say that, was P.T. Barnum, who's a figure that is rather prominent in the 48 Laws of Power, because I say that power has a lot to do with appearances. The human animal, unfortunately, probably, judges a lot on appearances. If we see someone looking or acting a certain way, we assume that it's real. And so a lot of people in power are actually magicians and con artists. They create an appearance. And P.T. Barnum knew how to entertain people and get attention in an extremely entertaining manner. Sort of a genius at it. And sometimes he would be extremely colorful and wicked, and sometimes he would be extremely subtle. And so I sort of point out examples in his life about, here's sort of a model to follow. He had a great museum in New York with all of his sort of freak show things in it. And he was always trying to get people to go inside the museum. And so one thing he did, for instance, was on a balcony of a